Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Lionel, and I'm your host of LT Productions, and you are watching I Watch You Watch. Today, we are covering Diarra from Detroit. This is season 2, episode 6. I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Please like this video. You can also subscribe and leave your comments below. Let's get into this week's episode. All right, y'all. So we begin with Danger and Bailey and the crew. Now, remember, Danger was trying to get up out of that place. And of course, Bailey caught up to him while he was trying to hitchhike. She tells him to get into the vehicle, and of course, he has to oblige. So they made it to the place that they wanted to go, as far as where they wanted to take him. And it's to the same place to where Danger and the one dude from last week that was a part of that gang. I forgot their names, but anyways, to the place where he shot and unalived that dude, and where he was also shot. And basically, this was the place that Bailey wanted to take him to say, hey, we did all this for you. And I thought it was like, look, you can act any type of way towards us or whatnot, but hey, we were here helping you, and we need to remind you of where you come from and who actually has been here to help you. From that point, what happened? Okay, so then Danger ends up taking one of the guy's guns. He pulls it out on them, and then Jude basically gets him to back up off of them. At that point, she just makes her case of, look, I went on and investigated you after they brought me to you. That's when he was down and out, been shot and all that. She nursed him back to health. She said, I knew that you off that man. And she's like, what do you want to do? Because right now, while you're sitting up here trying to plan your escape, there's a hit out on you by a guy named Pump. So you going back to Detroit right now, it's a death sentence. At that point, Danger basically lifted up a white flag, and they go into a house, trailer, or whatnot. And at that point, he came to his senses, or at least let me see if I can save my life for another day. He ends up, he's saying, thank you. I'm not used to anyone having my back. He apologizes to Bailey, and they end up smashing. Yeah, I already talked about that. She investigated him. She said that I didn't judge you. Of course, they brought up the whole drug situation. Bailey says, look, all I did was needed some help. With some money. The Vanguard gave me a way to make this money. And that's what I did. And it's not a thing that we're trying to make this a lifestyle. It just happened because it was needed. Period, point blank. Blah, 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 blah. Now, we're back in Detroit. Excuse me, I'm kind of making adjustments with this camera. I thought it was going to be good, but maybe I can just leave it alone. So, of course, I got to be my own production right now. Anyways, so we're back in Detroit. Daria, of course, Daria, why do I keep saying that? Diarra is now reacting to Booker being gone. Now, in this episode, we don't see Booker at all. So we don't even know who took him. But anyways, they find a goodbye note from Booker, which he wrote on the backside of, what's his name? Lord. What's his name? Lord, y'all can help me out. Book Kingdom's character. The sea guy. Lord. But basically that note, the dude that threatened Diarra's life, you get me, whoever is the Coney a killer, or it's your ass. That dude. So at that point, she's just questioning Raquita because, hey, you were supposed to put that up so where he can't see it. She said, I did. I put it in the Fruity Pebbles. And she said, no, you don't do that. You're supposed to put it in shredded wheat. You put it in a box where people like those types, like that cereal. So he was going to be in it. I don't know why they put it there. Like, there's got to be some other places. But anyways, of course, her witness is gone. And Diarra just started thinking about Ron at this point. And remembering Ron had this turtleneck. she's realizing, what if Ron has some type of secret girlfriend, just like Booker did, or a low-key girlfriend or whatever. She started putting together Miss Irma. Miss Irma, who's played by the legendary Miss Valerie Harper. And she said, we went back to what she was saying in regards to Duncan. And she said, well, what if Miss Irma was really telling a lie to try to throw me off or whatnot? And those two are in cahoots in some type of way as a Bonnie and Clyde. And then she said, I think I found who is that lady killer, the Coney killer, Irma. Now, remember what my guesses were. Anna Maria's characters, I forgot her name, and then also Miss Wanda. Those are my picks. I never would have thought of Miss Irma because it was such a minute role. But I'm glad that Miss Daria, shout out to you. Shout out to you, Miss Kilpatrick, Mrs. Kilpatrick, because look, I'm enjoying the show. And let me say this before I continue on. I have been trying to figure out what would be my favorite episode from this season. And I can't choose one because each episode, it gets greater and greater and greater and greater. And it elevates my anticipation and expectation of the show. I had no clue that this episode would be like this at all. Not at all. So I'll just say the season has been on fire. So I just salute you and to the cast and crew. Anyways, Diarra ended up figuring out that Ron must have had a hickey, so he's got to have a girlfriend, and probably came from Miss Irma. And because she's like, well, why else would he be wearing a turtleneck in the summertime? And you know what? I didn't even think of it. When those episodes was airing at the beginning of the season, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is strange that he did wear a turtleneck. He was outside everywhere. Or were they burns? Maybe not a hickey, since he's getting all this electric shock stuff that's going on. Who knows? Let's see. Then we get to a scene where Aja goes and visits Priest. I had no clue that that's the person that she would try to accuse of the one taking her hair. Of course, he was like, basically, you're tripping. No, I didn't do that. Because she's like, you're the only one. And he's like, well, why would I deliver it to you just to steal it from up under you? And she said that you were the rightful candidate. All I gotta say is Aja, he already said he didn't do it. You need to make things right with Priest. This better not be no 2-episode arc. I need to see more at Priest. You need to make it right. Now, whoever got your hair, we'll figure it out. Maybe it's your go-to person. You'll connect. Who knows? So now the crew gets together. Aja, T, Raquiba, and Mac, along with Diarra. At this point, the fat lady isn't singing anymore. They told Diarra to give up. But now that they know that there is 100K probability of whatever this treasure is, they got to stick to it. So then they start theorizing, okay, what is the flaw in Ron? They think he's an addict. And possibly in some type of way owes her for something, Irma, who knows? T brought up that if you're an addict, you're easy to control. So what we need to do is come up with a plan when we do find Ron to turn on Irma. Because it's set in stone in Diarra's mind that this is the killer. However, there's something at the end of this episode that makes me go, So the next gameplay is to go to the garden party. And they call it the garden party play. Diarra and the, is it the Ghetto Goonies? Yeah, that's who they are. They come in their best getup, and I'm going to tell y'all looked very great. T, I love that outfit. Yes, it was fire. Y'all looked really great. So basically, this is for the Preservation Council to basically honor each other for the good work for protecting the historical sites amongst the Detroit area. It's just basically, yeah, we're doing a good job, that type of thing. Anyways, Diarra kind of like doesn't give too many pleasantries to Irma because look, time is ticking. there's these little low-key shady darts that they throw at each other. And then Daria says, as they're talking, you know that there is a video from the night of the Coney killers. Boom. At this point, Irma says, come into the house. I would like to discuss this. When they finally get to the room that Irma wants them in, of course, Diarra's trying to look for Ron because she thinks that Ron is in that house someplace. Irma tells her, I would love to see that video. And Diarra says that it's in a safe place. I don't have it on me. There's a little back and forth with each other, and Irma says, you know, you have underestimated me. You don't know what I'm capable of. She's really over Diarra, and she calls for one of her guards and says, get this lady and kick the rest of them out, as far as her friends. The guard ends up picking up Diarra and putting him over her shoulder, and she's yelling and all that. She kind of escapes for just a second. I think she runs for a second, and then that's when the guard picks her up. But she's in this area. She's yelling out to Ron, da 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 da, show your face. However, she really planned this, and she lets us know that she put an ink pen within one of the window seals, and it's a way for her to get back in later on. But we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Oh, where we at? Yeah, so she said that was really all part of my plan, da 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 da. And then Diarra says, look, when she's about to get into the window, that she said the BITCH underestimated me. That she did. Oh, we're going to switch and go back over to Blaine. Looks like Bailey and Danger are together. Because despite even, you know, the whole bounty warrant or whatever you want to call it over a Danger's life, he's like, well, the only way that I can really fight this is to have leverage. So Bailey distracts the men when they go back into town so that Danger could go into the office of this militia group. And he's seeing a bunch of news clippings and all of that. And we're hearing also their side talk about treasure. So you got all these people now on this treasure hunt. It's so interesting. We find out that they want the treasure also. At this point, Diarra has broken into Irma's home. And she finds all the material of, okay, this girl has been one step behind me. Basically, she knows everything I know. What's up with that? So basically, she was the one that was listening in last week's episode. We also find out that Irma's working for the militia, because what happens is that Diarra dialed the phone or pressed a speed dial or whatever. At the same time that she was picking up the phone or whatever, pressed the button, it actually goes to the phone that's in the militia's office. Now, they're hearing the phone go off and they want to know what's up. Of course, Danger picks it up. Bailey's trying to distract them more and just turn their attention from that noise. However, at this point, Diarra's on the phone and she's just listening. And then also Danger's on his phone listening. There was another connection between Daria and Danger. So when are they just going to put Daria and Danger together? I mean, it looks like they're soulmates. Now, soulmate doesn't mean a romantic partner. But, you know, in this fiction, non-fiction world right now, or fiction, whatever it is, in this universe, yeah, that's going to work for us. Then there was this white lady, a white redneck, that basically took over the phone. While Diarra was rummaging through Irma's things, she found this voice disfiguring type of device, basically that changes your voice. She uses it when the white lady gets on the phone. But anyways, it didn't last too long. I think Daria ended up hanging up on her. She did say, oh, the collector. I guess that is a nickname for Irma. And then she says, did you find it? Diarra didn't answer. And that's when they hung up the phone. Oh. So, of course, the ghetto Goonies have gotten together again and said, look, we got to do something against Irma at this point, and we're going to have to run 2 games. Diarra goes and meets Royce, and he gives her the rundown on who Irma is. He didn't find her by her now name, but by another person named Irma Roy. So she's still Irma. But we find out that she's been decades upon decades of a con woman since the 70s. She ended up marrying an antiques dealer and inherited all of these antiques. Diarra figured, well, what would you actually do with all these antiques? She believes that it's just a front as far as this antique company, and thinks that this is a international laundering money scheme. And the Preservation Council is just a front. Next thing, they come up with a plan, and they're starting to execute it. The pastor trap. Basically, let's get Pastor and the former First Lady back together. They need them to get back together so that the audience will come back to the church. So they had to really come up with a plan. They thought about the power of suggestion to make it be that Kiki decided this on her own. But of course, no, seeds were planted in her mind. Yeah, but we do need the church members there so that they could cause a distraction and noise so that Diarra can get back down to the basement and hopefully find his treasure. So the gangsters had to come up with some ways to kind of get Kiki to open up to see what exactly went wrong in this relationship. She said, it was about 4 songs that he would make me sing. And Aja's the one that asked the question. So, just 4 songs just really broke y'all up? No, she says that it's not the 4 songs. It's my husband always doing the traditional stuff. I have a voice and I want to sing a certain way and he wouldn't let me do it. So, bye. So, at the same place Diarra and Royce are at, Royce isn't totally on to what is happening right now, and he thinks this is his chance to shoot his shot with Diarra. Where we're at, there's some type of dating type of event that's happening at this place. Now Royce wants this baby, and Diarra's like, now's not the time, bro. But there was a series of questions that were asked from both of them, Royce and Diarra, about each other. And basically, where do they stand right now? What is your desire if we're going to see y'all go on a date? Diarra says, look, no, Royce said, look, I just don't know if I want to just be a baby daddy. I really want it all. I want to come home to my family. I could be pragmatic, sweating, and to know everything about you. Diarra says, well, so it got very intense. You could feel the steam coming off the phone if you were watching from there or from your television sets. I'm like, oh, he laid it on thick. But Diarra countered a little bit, basically in support. Okay, cool. You want all those things, especially in a relationship. What about me? Where do I fit? How can I accommodate you and you accommodate me? So what I need you to do, since you want all of this stuff, I need you to date me. And from everything that was discussed, what was it? Not Odyssey. Oh, Diarra says that Royce really restored my faith. Lord, I keep losing it. My bad. Restore my faith in men and all that, and possibly having a relationship with someone to the end. And then there's this host that just said, hey, do y'all want to kiss? And they end up kissing. So Kiki's witnessing all of this. And it got her to thinking about her own relationship. The waiter came by and said, "What would you like to drink?" And she said, "Spin the block." And he said, "Spin the block it is." Basically, now there's a memory implanted in her to possibly fix her marriage. Um, Royce did ask, how did you know that this would work out? On the other end of town, Pastor is having the worst nightmare ever. Um, he goes out on a date with Raquiba. Um, and basically, she put on all of the works to make it be the worst date that he's ever been on. um, then back at the house, Royce asked Diarra, what we shared back there, was it real? Diarra says yes. And then she said, "Look, this is Chris's home. We just can't do it. We're going to have to just take it slow." What we did have in that flashback with Irma back at the beginning of the episode, Irma gave Diarra a snow globe. It was the day that Diarra questioned her. Yeah, so there's been a listening device in there, and that's how Irma was able to hear everything that was going on. Irma goes and visits Ron. She put him in a suitcase, y'all. One of those trunk type of suitcases. Uh, so Ron was like, Irma really confirmed with Ron, GR was on the right track and all that. So, hey, if I get my treasure tomorrow, you'll be free. Ron said, "Oh, free?" Then he said, "Do I still get my cut? Do I still get my cut? Do I still get my cut?" Crazy. Then she brings out the electric shock things that that people have, and says, "You'll take what I give you." Oof. So then it's church time. There's supposed to be distractions happening outside of even the singing. Aja pretends to throw up. Raquiba tells the security guard that there are some young people outside that is doing all this painting. Spray paint. Oh yeah, we already did that. Now, of course, when church starts, church is hot, and you can actually see most of the pews are really filled up. All it took was one person. That is some power right then and there. Well, anyways, at this point, Pastor, who is back with Kiki, basically is giving her free range on what she wants to sing. And that has been her gripe, because Pastor would not see her as an individual. It's always what he wanted him to do, what her to do, and all of that. So Pastor calls up Kiki and says to say whatever the HE double hockey sticks the Spirit gives her, it gives you to sing, sing it. Daria and Mac, they go downstairs. They're able to open the gate, and they start pressing these towel panels. The first one she actually pressed, an arrow came, and it shot Mac pretty well in the shoulder area, shoulder chest area. So it was like a booby trap. So while Asia, T, and whoever else, Raquiba, are upstairs, they are noticing that there's this one guy one woman that's really into the Spirit. They're trying to chuck it up as this lady is she got new hair and all of that, and she wanted to wave it like she just don't care. There's a lot of things that go on in church, unfortunately, where people are trying to get much attention. So, is this it? Yeah, Aja realizes that the bundles that this church lady has comes from her, despite certain, or at least think that she thinks it is from her. Probably Mary put it in her head. Anyways, I think we ought to take a mental note. I don't know what's going to actually come out of this, but that was a little bit of a call out that didn't, to me, need to be called out. But anyways, if you don't have any proof right now, because you already said priest has something to do, no. So Diarra expects Irma to show up. And she gave a message to Cartier that the Coney killer will be in this location. And of course, that excites Cartier and all of them. They'll be there in just a second. Mac has a heart-to-heart with Diarra. It says that you're in something that is effed up in order, because he wanted to say, hey, you with this other guy here, what's up with that? Anyways, that just, well, she does explain herself, but it sparks off a light bug in her as to some of the clues. So, with dating Royce before you actually end things, and she said, I know things are quite complicated and all that, da 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 da. So then she figures out, as far as doing it in order, it's an order of these 4 songs that Kiki was talking about, as far as that's the only thing that he will allow her to sing. And they figured out that those panels go along with the songs. They have this hymnal. And of course, it's one of this little light of mine. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. And then, of course, Amazing Grace. Everybody's heard of that one. So it was in that order that she chose the right tiles, and then it was able to open up this wall that's basically a tunnel. At this point, Diarra goes to Mac, who has been injured, and she had pulled out the arrow that stuck him, and says, tell Rakiba to take you to the hospital, and tell T to come downstairs. So back upstairs, of course, Kiki, who is played by the legendary, do we want to say legendary? The incomparable Amber Riley. When we get, they start singing this song, Jesus swing my way, you sure look good to me. Y'all know that song, Shorty swing my way, you sure look good to me. I said, what is y'all doing? But anyways, it's been many decades where gospel has incorporated secular music along with what they got going on. So, hey, it is what it is. So T is kind of looking out, and then he spots the redneck militia are in the building. But what he spots so different about this dude is that he sees Blaine, Michigan. At the beginning of the season, remember T spotted danger? And also noticed in regards to Blaine, Michigan. So he made a distinction there, and he goes to follow the white guy. When he sees the white guy, someone comes up behind him and zaps him. So Diarra goes into the tunnel and sees that there is this scroll, well, a mini scroll, obviously from Duncan, and it says, go to Union Street. Ron all of a sudden shows up. Diarra says, look, I am disappointed in you. You had me doing all this. You done put my boyfriend as the martyr in this whole situation, and you need to do something about it. Of course, he explains himself that he was in a gambling hole. Irma bought his debt, and he said in exchange that could possibly pay back what she has also basically paid for him is this armoire. And then he finally confesses it's a desk. Diarra says, I need you to go to the cops. Ron says, I need the scroll. Then he says that I knew where the treasure was a long time ago, but I knew I had to play along with Duncan. But if you knew where it was, I don't know. That was a little bit mixed up, like, huh? But anyways, at the same time that he's talking, the rednecks come in, and we hear from the woman who took over the phone at the militia's office from Danger. Diarra recognizes the voice and says, oh, we've spoken before. And she's remembering speaking to her. Ron is trying to tell the woman, look, I got this, da-da-da-da-da, you can back off. The white woman says that I don't take orders from spooks. I said, what? Well, we know it's still real around here about the isms. Anyways, At this point, the lady's got a GUN up and says, "Give me what you have. You got, I think it was like 30 seconds or so." And Diarra was like, "No, there ain't nothing to really give up, blah, 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 blah," and puts Ron in the line of fire because she said she don't care nothing about him, blah, 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 blah. Do it to him. But anyways, Diarra ends up saying, "Look, take the scroll. It's talking about Union Street." Ooh, sorry. It's talking about Union Street. There's a Union Street bank. My guess is that the account has something to do with too. And then possibly that's your treasure. So anyways, the woman ends up shooting Ron cold blood there, and Diarra gets up out of there. And she runs through this tunnel. That was the end of the episode. I enjoyed myself. All these legends that Diarra put in her show, phenomenal. And for new actors, I love it. It was a balance of new folk and the legends. And I'm excited for a lot of more projects from you, Diarra, just to let you know. But y'all could give me your thoughts of this week's episode. What were your highlights? What were your lowlights? Any questions that maybe we can dialogue about? But anyways, I appreciate everyone for coming. Like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next one, peace.